a couple months ago. You got a lot going on. So glad to have you here. Week 4, Power of Invitation. This message today probably the most near and dear to my heart, what I'm going to share. So it's definitely fits what we're going to talk about in this series and put hopefully a bow tie on it, but not be done. 2022, do we have any Swifties in here? Go ahead and raise your hand. I want to know. 2022, Taylor Swift kicked off her Eras tour in Brisbane, Australia. What happened, this trend that's been kind of happening and kind of taken over by storm is there's a song that she sings. It's called You're on Your Own, Kid. From her, I forget what album it is. I'm not a Swiftie, but I do. What's the album? Midnight. Thank you. See, I knew I would get corrected and educated, so thank you. Midnight. So in this song, she talks about putting on a friendship bracelet. And from that one song, this huge swell of people wanting to go buy beads and make these friendship bracelets. If you see pictures of these girls going to these they're just covered in their arms. Now, I'm in my early 50s. That was a big trend back in the 70s and 80s. It's back again thanks to Taylor Swift. What happens is they make these friendship bracelets and they'll show up and they'll put, whether it's a song or a theme or a word, and they'll exchange bracelets at the concerts and share their experiences. Now, the crazy thing about that is, if you and I could go back and invest in beads, in stock in beads, we would be wealthy right now because the stores are running out of beads because people are buying so many beads to build these friendship bracelets. Why do you say all that? It's an interesting fact for our message today. Right now in America, the research I'm going to share with you right now, we're living in one of the loneliest periods in histories of this country. Little research they did was, before I get into that, Billy Graham, they did a research on the people that would come to his crusades and the people who got saved. They found out 80% of those people who came to the altar, gave their life to Christ, were brought there by a friend. Elmer Towns, who was a good friend of his, Elmer is still alive. I've read several of his books. He did a little more research. Here's what he found. 2% came from a non-personal advertisement. Something just, a flyer or something back then, right? 6% came from personal influence of a pastor. Notice the percentages here are small, right? 6% came from intentional evangelistic efforts of the church. This is staggering to what Dave was saying about we're trying to invite people. 86% found Jesus as a result of a friend or a relative. 86%. And all we're trying to do with this series, not just now, but just change the culture of renovate. Hey, come, be a part, right? And so today we want to look at this subject of friendship. Proverbs 18:24 says this, that anybody who wants friends must show themselves friendly. And there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. And so part of having friends is what? You got to be friendly. And you're seeing this in society with whether it's the culture wars, politics, the social media, the phones, people having different views. We're becoming so antagonistic and divisive that relationships are shattering and we're not making friends like we used to. And so there's a charge, and here's the crazy thing, when I read a lot, I haven't really seen any books on how to be a good friend. There's a lot on how to make more money, how to be successful, how to be a great leader, how to multiply your church, how to communicate at a higher level, how to build your brand. There's not many books on how to be a good friend. There's just not, and this is an central theme of the Bible. Let's look at the landscape in America real quick. There's this term going on I forget the name of this psychologist. If you want to know this, I can send you the paper on it. I don't have it on me, but the American friendship recession. They're calling it a friendship recession in America right now. It is weakening civic life here in our very midst. Listen to this. 46% of Americans say they are lonely or they feel alone. 46%. 43% of Americans say the relationships they do have are not meaningful. Men have suffered the greatest. So ladies, you kind of are doing better than this. Not surprised there, honestly. But men are really suffering in this the most. Listen to this. In 1990, 55% of men said they didn't have many close friends. Right? Excuse me, said they had close friends. Today, 27% of men say they have some close friends. So 55% they had close friends in 90. Now it's down to 27 as men. Today, in 1990, 3% of men said they didn't have one close friend at all. 3% in 1990, they didn't have one close friend. Today, 15% of men say they don't have one close friend at all. That's 5 times increase for men. They do not have one close personal friend that they can call on. Social isolation is taking its toll on us physically too. Listen to this. It weakens your immune system, making you more susceptible to sickness, disease, high blood pressure, heart problems, inflammation goes up, right? Sleep disruption, heart disease, cancers, and dementia. We've got to be better with friendship. We've got to. Proverbs 18:1 says this. It says it probably better than what I just said. A man who isolates himself, what? Seeks his own desire, and he rages against all wise judgment. It is so imperative as a church, as a people, that we don't isolate ourselves, that we're constantly seeking friends and building, not just for our own sake, but for God's sake too. One of the key signs when you read, and I forget the books that I got this out of, but the end times, is the disappearance, and you're seeing this as you get closer to Christ coming back. You're seeing this disappearance of loyalty, of friendship. I mean, think about how many people you know that they break up and they're friends and they just never, it's done. And we're just losing this ability to restore that fabric of friendship once it's kind of tethered, right? And so here's my whole thing to jump into this message today. What I'm seeing is, if you could just see this picture, metaphor, there's a keyhole right in front of us. There's a huge void and keyhole of the people they're alone. They're lonely, and they don't have friends. So I'm going to give you the key today, right? And so that's the title of this little message. This last message is the keyhole, how to unlock the power of an invitation through friendship. The power of having a friend. Let's just look at some of the stats on this too. If you have a friend, you're more likely to talk to strangers in your neighborhood. You're just open, right? If you're not friendly, you're not going to talk to people. I mean, there's people, I think it was Rachel and Alan and I and Karen, we went on a long hike here on the Greenbelt in Austin. I think it was a couple months ago. And I just took note of like how many people won't even make eye contact with you. We're walking right by them, and you just say hi, and they won't even speak. And it's like we're losing this like friendliness of like, hey, how are you doing today? This just simple etiquette of being a human being, that I care about those around me. We're just becoming shut down. I remember reading years ago, it was an article on we've lost the American front porch. I mean, think about the front porch back during when many of you, the older folk in here, sorry. The front porch is where what? Everybody hung out. You got on a swing and just a swing. I don't know if you remember that song, but everybody, you'd make some lemonade and some sweet tea, and the neighbors would come hang out. And man, the front porch was this bustling like room of activity. Now what do? We pull up in our garage, the button goes up, I stay in my like don't speak to me. Garage goes down, I go in my house, and I got a ring thing, like if I don't want to talk to you, I'm not coming to the door to talk to you. And so I just isolate myself, and now all of a sudden, without realizing, you're like, man, I'm in a bad spot in my life. Well, I wonder why, right? And so you're more likely to talk to strangers if you are friendly. You're more likely to volunteer. to go to church. Duh, right? To attend a local coffee shop or go to a bar. Again, I'm not saying you need to go to a bar, but like you're more social. To attend a local event or meeting. So here's the paradox, and I'm going to get into my points here. Those who are lonely, you would think like, hey, hello, the solution is you need to go be with friends. Like raise your hand. Who's lonely in here? Raise your hand. Don't do that. Who's lonely? Oh, I'm lonely. Hey, you need to just go hang out with some people. But guess what lonely people tend to do? They tend to go backwards and isolate themselves even more. The very antidote, the cure to their sickness would be to go and be with more people. They don't do that. But you know what happens? It's the opposite paradox. Those that are friendly tend to do what? Build more friendships. And they tend to have healthier lives because they have community. I'm just saying, like maybe some of you this summer, as we're going through this, you need to work on building community. Maybe you just take a leap of faith and get involved. I was sharing with Dave and the staff earlier this week, and Dave was checking on me yesterday. Thank you, Dave. I got invited to this poker game in my neighborhood. I hate games. I hate Scrabble, Uno, you name it. I don't like playing games because I'm competitive, and if I'm not good and you kick my butt, I'm mad at you. And so, yes, that's very immature. I understand that. Please pray for me. I'm growing. One of our biggest our fights we ever had was when we played Scrabble, and she destroyed me. I wouldn't speak to her in the car all the way home. I needed counseling. I just don't know how to come up with words. So anyway, so maybe you, and that's what I'm trying to accept this challenge myself, that Dave and I want to go be a part. We're sitting in this. I haven't played poker in 30 years. I don't know what I'm doing. I knew whatever that, we had to, I think, do a little buy-in. I knew that was an offering because I ain't going to win. And there's these 9 guys, and I'm looking around as I'm thinking about how many guys in here are really need help. And the guy that hosted said, hey, Donnie, you're pastoring now. Like, I didn't ask him to do that. It's just God starts opening these doors for us as we do what? Invite people and become friendly to them. Opportunities come up, and then lives begin to get changed. And so, but those who aren't lonely tend to do what? Make more room and friends to build community. So here's the dilemma. Here's the dilemma of the lonely. This is crazy. The dilemma of the lonely is this. You believe and think that you're the only lonely one. You think you're the only lonely one because you're so lonely. And I studied for this, and this like blew me out of the water, what I'm about to say. If you go back to Genesis 3, and you just read through the accounting of how God made the heavens and the earth. He made the sun, the stars, the land, the sea. And he said, after every day, it is good, it is good, it is good. When he made man, that's the first time God says, he looks at man and goes, it's not good for man to be alone. Now watch this. This is the staggering. Loneliness, so sin hasn't happened, so Adam is perfectly perfect. He's never done anything. There's no sin on the earth. And there in the midst of the garden, Adam felt the sting and the ache of loneliness. It was that God saw it even in a perfect world and goes, you will not make it if you feel lonely. How much more today? Are people lonely? And every one of us sitting in here, you have a network of people that if you just spend time with them, they're going to enjoy it. I've had people come in my office, sit down, and all I do is listen, and they keep coming back. It's like you feed the stray cat, right? And he just keeps like, why do you keep coming back? Because they know you care about them. And it's really not that difficult. Friendship is the comfort, right? Here's the kind of definition for friendship for all of us. Friendship is the comfort of knowing that even when you feel alone, you aren't. I mean, look, do a little just inventory. I'm not going to ask you to say this out loud, but who in here can call somebody in the middle of the night, you're discouraged and you're weeping and you need just encouragement? How many people can you call? If you don't have at least 1 or 2 people you can call, you need a friend. You need to push and be uncomfortable into this. You need to build some friends. Okay, here's my 3 points today. 3 codes to unlock friendship. 3 codes. And think about this. I've got this big gate up at school, the football practice field. It's a ginormous gate. It's heavy. You really can't open it. But at the bottom, there's this lock with these 3 numbers. And when you lock in, I'm not telling you the numbers either, so don't ask me for them. If you, PJ, I know you want them. I'm not giving them to you, but you push those in, and that gate opens up easy. And so I'm going to give you 3 here, 3 codes. If you lock this in, very simple, this big gate of friendship will open. Point number 1 is hospitality. Hospitality. The word hospitality or hospitable comes from the word hospital. If you study the hospital just means guest. So I want you to think for a moment. I want you to do this in your head. What's the difference between a guest and a host? Right? If you want to be a leader, if you want to make a difference in our community, you've got to be the host. And you've got to look for the guest. That's, if you could summarize Jesus' mission on earth, all he did was he was the host. I see problems, I'm going to come down, and I'm going to host people and bring guests into my life and serve them and change their life. That was it. It was friendship. I mean, you look at Jesus, one of my favorite scriptures, you got to know the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, there's a lot of laws around being a servant. Because your master, you served your master out of obligation. They fed you, they took care of you. They clothed you, put a roof over your head. They corrected you, they disciplined you, right? So in the Old Testament, the law was all about servanthood, and your master was over you. Jesus said this to his disciples and the people he led. No longer do I call you servants. I call you what? Friends. He began to peel back the layers of like, hey, I'm your friend. I'm not going to beat you down. I'm not going to demand of you. I love you. I care for you. I'm going to ask you some hard questions because I care about you. You are no longer a servant. We're friends. And so hospitable. If there's one secret code to the power of invitation, it's being hospitable. Being hospitable has the power to what? Ignite and unlock friendships to a whole new level for you. Definition of being hospitable here. Just listen to this. This is out of Webster. Given to a cordial reception of guests. Notice these words here. Promising a friendly and generous welcome. Come. Offer, this is my favorite one, C here, offering a pleasant or sustaining environment, or D here is really receptive and open. I mean, you think about, I love some of the pastors I've studied over the years. Like if you're saved, you might want to send a memo to your face. You just look cranky and grumpy all the time, and like, you love Jesus. I don't know if I want to know your Jesus. And let's keep it simple, right? Like, you either have a yes face or a no face. You know what I'm talking about. The problem sometimes with the yes face is when I go on vacation and they're always selling the time store, what is it, the timeshares. Like, I'm always the guy who gets sucked into that with a yes face. Like, no, I don't need to listen to an hour presentation to buy this timeshare. So there are some downsides to having open receptive, but for this message, you definitely need it. Hebrews 12:13 says this. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. I love that word practice because, again, you'll hear in a minute, we're trying to talk about a lifestyle. And I love this quote here. Hospitality is making your guests feel at home even though you wish they were home. You wish they were not at your house. Think about it. So and you're going to see it in a second, there's a shift. There's a difference today. Our culture in America, we're addicted to entertainment. I love to be entertained. Right? And entertainment, you'll see in a minute, there's a difference in the Bible between entertainment and being hospitable. One is a self-serving deal. And again, entertainment in itself is not bad, but if I live my whole life just feeding myself and worried about me, it's not going to be a great life. 1 Peter 4:9 says, offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Again, going back to this entertainment, hospitality kind of comparison, unlike entertaining, hospitality does not seek to impress or network or create obligations with people. So you're not trying to impress people. You're not trying to network and build your way up to the corporate ladder. That's not what hospitality is. Instead, it seeks to serve. Hospitality will increasingly become an expression of love for particular guests Listen, this is the main thing right here. Biblical hospitality seeks how to what? Show love in ways that each guest will recognize and feel. They're cared for. It speaks to guests in their own language, right? Just as God does to us, this means taking much of the guest situation into your consideration if we're to be aware at all. So are they grieving? Are they discouraged? Is one of their kids going through a rough season mentally and then academically? Are they struggling financially? You're bringing them, you're kind of being aware of like, hey, I care about you, what's going on? That's hospitality. Unlike entertaining, Christian hospitality is not a special occasion, it is a lifestyle. It's a change in the way you think, and here it is. Let's look at your calendar. I mean, just do an audit. Like, you go through your calendar, how many things on there are for you, for your work, and for you only, and nobody else? You're just not, again, guess what? You don't realize it, but, and I was reading this, I was reading this book while I was over in Europe. I kind of told Dave about it. There was a conviction. He kind of says something in that book. In the culture of society, what we end up doing by looking at our calendars, and we don't make time for church and community, we tell our kids and family like church and God's just not important. This other stuff's way more important than that. Again, I'm not saying we can't do that, but here, when are we going to prioritize community and friendship and biblical hospitality? Point number 2. So point 1 was hospitable. Point 2 is helpful. Right? These are all 3 H's. I'm keeping it simple for you. If you could summarize, right, the one thing that Jesus came to earth to do, he came to serve. It's on the board there. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. I mean, think about this term, helpful. Jesus was able to get others to follow him because he was just so helpful, right? Think about what he did. Some of these obviously were miracles. That helps when you can kind of, multiply breads and loaves of fish. That helps. But I always like to reflect on, like, why was Jesus so good at helping people? Well, if you know anything about his childhood, his father was a carpenter. You ever worked in a shop like that? I have. If your dad's a carpenter, guess what you're doing? All you're doing is helping. You're just serving. Hey, go get the hammer. Hold this wood here. Measure this again. Tack this up. Carry this, load the truck up. That's what, if you think about his early childhood, that was the DNA and foundation before he started his ministry at 30. He was a carpenter's helper. He was a servant. And so his whole philosophy and his mentality and perspective of life is, hey, I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you. And today, we don't think like that, right? We think, oh, I'm going to look out for myself. So think about this. He supplied wine to the wedding at Cana. Why do you think he did that? His mom knew he was a helper. She watched him as a kid. Hey, you've always helped your dad. Help me. Right? She didn't know he was going to do she had no idea he was going to do that. I guarantee you, he was going to do that miracle. She saw him help his dad all those years. Son, I need help. He supplied more wine, right? He fed thousands. He went to see a sick friend, Lazarus. Stopped this whole deal. He was late getting there, right? But he went to see his friend. He spent time with kids. He calmed the storm. He encouraged people. He showed people compassion. He prayed for people. And when you start thinking about helping people, it's not that difficult. It's just changing your perspective, like, hey, I'm here to help you. I remember reading a book years ago. The book was titled How to Ruin Your Life Before You Turn 40. Guess what rule number 1 was? Just think about yourself all the time. You'll ruin your life before you turn 40. And so again, this whole kind of culture we're in right now of just being isolated alone, we've got to start thinking about others. I love this quote. You have two hands. One to help yourself and one to help others. One to help yourself, one to help others. And I love reading this one pastor out of a First Presbyterian Church in Philadelphia. Pastor Bruce Tillman said this. We got, as today, as helpers and servants, we need to have basin theology. I love this kind of metaphor. If you look at Pilate, Pilate was the man that accused Jesus and could have stopped him from being crucified. But right before the Jews come and put pressure on Pilate, he gets in the water basin in front of him. He washes his hands and goes, I'm through with this. But now let's take Jesus the night on, he knows he's going to be brutally crucified the next day. He's got the same basin with water in it. What does he do? He puts on a towel, focuses on his friends, gets on the ground and washes their feet with the same. He goes, hey, I'll help you. Pilate helped nobody. He served himself. Jesus, what? He served others. And so we've got to have that same kind of mentality. Point 2 is helpful. Last point today was heartfelt. Definition here is very, very simple and profound, and you'll get the point here, is a deep, sincere feeling or wish. Notice the word feeling. And here's what I like about this. My daughter, Anna, and Evelyn, who they're not here, they're in Fayetteville right now in college, they ran track for a guy here in Cedar Park. He's not coaching anymore. His name was Coach Grenier. And my daughter, they'd been in volleyball coaches and stuff all the years, but I noticed something when my daughter would come home after practice. I just noticed that there was something different about her from being around this coach. So I've coached for a long time, so I'm curious, like, hey, what is it about this coach? I keep hearing like positive vibes and feelings from you, and she just starts telling me about, I love Coach Grenier. Now, note this. She wasn't like this world-class runner. She didn't start. She wasn't on varsity. But here's what she said. Daddy cares about me. I'm like, what? But do you score points? I'm trying to be nice and not mean. Like, do you score any points for him? I'm not that great, Dad. He cares about me. Here's what he did. I'll never forget this. Out of all my girls, my daughter's right there, Olivia, she's been in volleyball. And one day my daughter comes home and she says, Dad, you're not going to believe what Coach Grenier did. I said, he got me a new pair of running shoes. This kid doesn't score any points. Her shoes were blowing up. I mean, I could have went and got her shoes. I just didn't know. Even her own dad wasn't paying attention. He went and bought her a brand new. From that point on, this is my guy. Coach Grenier, I love this man. Why? Because he cares about the kids he's leading. We've got our pediatrician, Dr. Ross Procknow. I've met him maybe once or twice. Karen could give you a long story. I mean, early on when our girls were little, we did not change. There's no way we're changing pediatricians. Why? This man cares about my girls. And you can see it in how he talks to them, he treats them, talks to my wife. And when they come home, they just rave about him. He just cares for them. He's heartfelt. There's emotion there. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's a famous quote, but it's so true. It's bedrock in this message of friendship. Here's a kind of a quote that kind of encapsulates it. The happiness of life is made up of minutia or minute fractions. The little, soon forgotten charities of a kiss or a smile, a kind look, or a heartfelt compliment. When somebody really means something to you and you feel that emotion, that's heartfelt. I can flippantly say something to you, but you don't really feel that. But if I have there's a compassion there, and here's kind of where we get it from, right? If you go back to being heartfelt, it comes from this word of where it literally comes from the term, like, it literally moved your bowels. I'm not trying to be gross. Sorry. But you can feel that pit in your stomach. When somebody really cares about you, it really bubbles up and comes into your life. And that draws people, right? And so no matter how rich, talented, or great you think you are, how you treat others ultimately tells all in our life. And I love, whenever we, being a coach, and I love to watch when we bring freshmen in. Because I just want to know they care about their teammates. I know they're good at volleyball. They wouldn't be here if they, or whatever, tennis or football or whatever. But do you really care about your teammates? Do you care about the community? We're planting in this community, and if you don't care about them, we're not going to win. We'll score a lot of points, but we're not going to change anything, right? And so my challenge for you on this one is walk slowly through the crowds. Jesus, if he did one thing, he literally walked slowly through the crowds. What's that mean? Just slow down and connect with people. And there it is, the verse, Matthew 9:36 says what? When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. So he was constantly walking slowly through he wasn't ever in a hurry. So the challenge for you this summer, here's your challenge, is as you're going through your day-to-day stuff, can you slow down and have like what Jesus, a needs sensor? Slow the conversation down, put your phone up, and see how this person's doing. Just connect with them. Is there discouragement, sadness there? I know we keep digging into, Jake and I are digging into Dave, some of this wild at heart. We want to keep building some of that for the men. Ladies, we got you too. But the one thing we start finding out with men, that a lot of men are hurting, they're just not going to tell you. But again, you got to have that familiarity with them for them to let you into their hearts. But they're not going to tell you that, right? So if we are earnestly praying that God will make an opportunity for the gospel, we need to walk slowly through the crowd this summer, right? That needs sensor. Jesus isn't calling us to only sense physical and earthly needs, but to sense the ultimate need of every human, that's salvation. Human souls are utterly and hopelessly lost without Jesus. And are we picking up on that? We're going to have three things we're going to pray for here at the end. And I want to finish with a riddle before the team comes back up. I'm going to give you a riddle, and I want to see if you can answer this to close this out. So there were two crocodiles on the bank of the Nile, both sitting on huge rocks. It's hot out, it's sweltering. Both crocs were hot. One of the crocs, he knows it's hot. He knows how to get off the rock. He feels some of the water on one of his legs, right? He makes a decision to get off the rock. He wants to get off the rock. He makes that decision to get off the rock. The riddle is how many crocs are still on the rocks? Now, many of you would say, oh, that's one. But I say, no, there's still two crocs. Because here's the magic. The croc knew it was hot. He felt the heat. He made a decision to get off, but you know what? He didn't take action. And I'm going to tell you what now. This summer, we got to take action. We're preaching about it. We're talking. We're encouraging you. We're putting out the events. Take action. If we don't take action, there's no magic. I went to the poker game last night because I want to put some faith, right? Faith without works is dead. I can sit there and have faith all day, but until I step out of the boat, I can't walk on water. God's not going to do anything. So my challenge for you this summer is pray, right? Pray for people. God will slow you down so that you'll see the needs of others. Pray that God will create divine opportunities with a gospel conversation, and that he'll develop a culture of prayer so we can fill those needs. Amen? So again, today, the keyhole that unlocks. Let's be hospitable, not just now, but in our church in the summer. Let's be helpful, serve others, right? Have that basin that Jesus had, and then let's be heartfelt. Let's really dial in and pay attention to who's hurting around us. Amen. If we can call the team back up, worship team, we'll go ahead and pray, close in prayer, and we'll do one song, right? Yeah. So just please praise with me, and then we'll transition. Lord, just thank you so much for this series. And what you're doing in Renovate in our hearts, I know I've even just week after week, I feel this excitement and drawing to just focus and try to help other people. And I've noticed something, Lord, in my own life, that there's a joy there. God, I pray that we would all begin to experience the joy. The Bible says that heaven rejoices over one sinner who repents versus the 99 who are already saved. So God, I pray that we would experience and feel that joy. People that don't know you come to Christ, that maybe they don't know you and they don't want to make the decision, but we invite them into that community as a friend and love on them unconditionally, Lord. God, let that be our heart's cry. Let that be the action we take this summer. In Jesus' name, everybody said, amen.
Come on, stand with us as we go out with a bang here.